Hello, you. Welcome back. Or just welcome. I have a tendency of overdoing things, and the same goes for my consumption of social media. The main issue that I have with social media is that the time I spend on it does not correspond with the practical benefits or the value that I get from it. Because if those two were proportional to each other, then that would be perfect. So I'm gonna delete all the apps and refrain from using social media for a while, and by the end of this I'll tell you what kind of impact it can make, if any. Not making any promises here. I also want to experience how much my compulsive use of social media actually takes in my mind, and if there is going to be any notable differences in my attention or concentration. Not all people see it as a bad thing to scroll around on social media, and understandably so. Following what your friends are doing or eating is not inherently negative. And what about when you're waiting for the train and you don't have anything better to do? I don't know if that's exactly harmful, but my problem is that I'm not even aware that I'm picking up my phone from the pocket, and the Face ID unlocks my phone with my barely cognizant face, and my fingers swipe their way through the social media apps. And then I put the phone back in my pocket, and if you had asked me what I was just watching, I would likely not even have remembered. So it's like I'm not in control, and that's what I don't like about it. I'm 2 minutes into the process and I'm already experiencing how impractical it can be to not have Facebook. Because I'm in charge of organizing an event. It's gonna include a lot of people that I only have contact with through Facebook. So it will make it a lot more difficult. So this was an interesting start to a video that I thought would expose how unnecessary social media is for me. But I guess I'll use it to my advantage and plan as much as I can now before my hiatus. I think these other apps are going to be easier to get rid of, like Snapchat. I only have Snapchat on my phone on occasion, so I'm not going to miss that. But then we have Instagram. That's also going to be a bit difficult because I have some connections that I would like to keep in contact with through Instagram. So yeah, if I was going to do this on a permanent basis, then I think I would announce my transition over to just messages, text messages, because this already feels pretty impractical. I don't really consider YouTube a social media like the other ones, but that's really one of my main addictions at the moment. I'm in a really bad habit of watching videos until I fall asleep on my phone. So for this experiment to make more sense, I'm gonna have to delete the YouTube app as well. Because this experiment is, after all, about taking away those way too easy instant gratification dopamine hits that the apps give you the second you start feeling a bit bored. It's time to be bored. Because boredom is actually a good thing for us, and this is why. This study was trying to find out if doing something boring would have a positive effect on our creativity versus doing something non-boring. Group A was set to perform some particularly boring activities, while Group B obviously was spared of that boring activity. Then both groups performed creative tasks so that the scientists could measure which one of the groups were more creative. And they found out that doing something boring will make you more creative. And the article is concluded by suggesting that if one is trying to solve a problem or come up with a creative solution, undertaking a boring task might help with coming up with a more creative outcome. And being bored also has the positive effect of making us mind wander. And according to this study, when we mind wander, it's a predominantly future-focused activity, so it will help us really plan our future. So make time in your day to stare at the wall, and you'll have the most fulfilled life of us all. And if this video makes you bored, then you're welcome. That's the intention. I could make an exciting and dramatic and engaging video. I'm doing this for you. I want your creativity to blossom in the boredom created by my poorly formulated sentences. A few times now I've got my phone and swiped over to where Instagram used to be, and my thumb wants to click it, even though it's not there, obviously. And that just shows how much checking these apps is just built into my nervous system at this point, and that it's not because of curiosity or a conscious decision to check them. So that's a great indication that it's time to disconnect in the nervous system sense of this. And there's a phrase in neurology that goes, if you don't use it, you lose it. So I'm going to use that to my advantage now and cut all those addictive social media connections.
I gotta go. I've been working, told them please don't hit my phone.
Social media is often talked about in a negative light, I feel like. It's like the numerous amounts of positive reasons why we use it just gets taken for granted. But But I guess it isn't so interesting to discuss or write articles or produce videos about how great Instagram is to show off your art or how perfect Snapchat is to send news. But what's more interesting is the other side of it. What does it do to us when we log in to double check if we were the ones who was going to bring ketchup to the barbecue on Thursday? But then you get caught and trapped by an endless stream of useless, entertaining, addictive, and fun, time-consuming content time after time. But again, social media is a wonderful asset, and it would have been perfect if we could just sneak in to get all the positive and practical parts of it and avoid the reactionary, compulsive, and unintentional parts of it. Four days into the experiment, the urge to check social media all the time is drastically reduced. But I have a confession to make. YouTube. I did not put any restrictions on how much I could use YouTube. And if YouTube is a social media, I don't know, I think there's a lot of different opinions on that, and that's for a different conversation. But since this experiment is all about the addictive behaviors I have to social media, it doesn't really make sense to just transfer my addictive behaviors from one medium to the other, which I have done. And there's actually one more thing. I had to sneak into Facebook and Instagram real quick because I was expecting messages that were quite important to reply to and not just leave for 7 days because of this experiment. But I honestly just checked it for a second and deleted it. So I don't feel too bad, but why can't I just lie and say that I didn't check them? God, I need to work on my honesty in these videos. Anyway, there were still some good takeaways to learn from this experiment, so please bear with me despite these small hiccups. So, what is the takeaway from all of this? Well, after 4 days and when the worst FOMO was over, I realized and confirmed that I'm not so addicted to or curious on the content, the actual content that I consume on social media. And that the reason I use it is really just because it's an easy and effortless and cheap escape from being bored and from my own thoughts. Even though I'm not in any way trying to escape my own thoughts. But I have no intention of completely giving up social media at all because I have a lot of benefits that I get from it. But what I'll try to continue doing, and what I recommend you to do if you have the same struggles and have the same addictive personality as me, is to delete the apps so that they create that extra little barrier, because that's enough to stop the compulsiveness, but it's not enough to hinder you from checking social media when you actually want to, because it only takes around 20-15 seconds to download it, and you only delete the app and not the user, so it's just really not a big deal. And if you're able to moderate yourself, or that you don't see the point in reducing social media time, then I guess you have clicked off this video a long time ago. And another point I want to make is that we should pick our battles. Since this video ended up being more about compulsion, then it doesn't necessarily have to be only related to social media, because constantly checking news sites or YouTube is just as bad in the context of the video. But it's much easier to defend spending a lot of time scrolling on the news, because at least then you're being a part of society, and it's essential for every individual one of us to stay up to date on what's happening in every corner of the world at all times. Yeah, I don't really agree with my own overconsumption of the news either. Oh, you're back. I really am two people. If you're watching this from bed and you share my nightly habit of watching YouTube until you fall asleep, then I'll share a couple. Would you mind? Then I'll share a couple of videos that you can watch here. There are so many issues with social media, good and bad, and there is so much to talk about, but yeah, I just picked out the things that came to mind in this period, really. So hope you liked it. Thank you for watching.